Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of The Human Side of Marketing. I'm your co-host, Chris Angel. Here with your host, Kurt Stockwell.
Chris, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Just before we hit record, we were talking about how gray our beards are getting.
I know. I said you have to earn it. You can't like this is an earned thing. So I'm proud. I'm a proud member of the Salt and Pepper Club.
There's a story behind every gray hair, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I could oh yeah, this one came from that one time.
Yeah. This side's my one kid. This side's my other kid.
Yeah, man. I think getting older is like a good thing now. I think people used to resent getting older, but I think, as you get older, at least now for me, I'm finding that there's all kinds of secrets to life I didn't know when I was younger. So I'm happy to be where I am at this stage of the game, living my life, living my story.
We're in our 40s, and people, our senior, are rolling their eyes, going, you guys aren't old.
Come on. But they know you can, if you're older than me, you can appreciate you listening to this. You can appreciate how it feels to start coming into your own and stepping into your kingdom and feeling like, yeah, okay, like here we go. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I mean, I think that's even a good teaser a little bit for today, because we're going to talk about whose story are we living? I think a lot of people could get in their 60s still not maybe living their full story, but I'll let you expand on what you mean by this. But I'm already interested and curious where we'll go.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that makes 2020 such an interesting year is, and I've just dated this podcast. So if you're listening sometime in the future, we're still in the throes of 2020 here. But I think it makes everybody kind of rethink, what is life all about? What, there's a little sense of mortality that we've all kind of had. There's a little sense of like, what am I allowing to be in my life as a direction or as a distraction? And so the title of the episode today is, whose story are you living? Because I'm just convinced that if you don't know what story you are living or what story you are a part of, then you're living somebody else's story. Because we all need to be focused on who we want to become, who's with us on the journey. And if we don't take the time to do that, we're going to live other people's dreams, and people are going to be able to impose their goals on us or their values on us. And so it's a good time to sit down and take and reflect on those things. So we're going to talk about those things today. Kind of the some of the edifice behind the discussion is from some things that I've been doing through StoryBrand. One of the elements of StoryBrand that is recently been revealed is a course called Business Made Simple University. It's multiple courses, and one of those courses is on a life plan. And so I've been studying that, and got some more things that we're going to talk about later regarding that. But the life plan that StoryBrand has developed is really based upon a book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And the course is going to be called Hero on a Mission. So Sigmund Freud, back in the day, he said man is searching for pleasure. And Viktor Frankl later said, no, man's really searching for meaning. And I think we remember from our days back in, studying guys like Sigmund Freud, he was kind of a wackadoo, a little bit of a weird dude. And I would say that, Sigmund Freud is wrong and Viktor Frankl is right. We all are searching for meaning. And if we don't know what story we're living, then it allows others to dictate, or we're directionless and attracted to distraction. I think that's another thing too, is something that a lot of people have been dealing with when you get your daily routine or even your life routine completely rocked like it has this year. If you don't have some goals and focus, you are attracted to distraction. And I think that many people could look back on these last few months and go, I didn't really do anything. I didn't have any focus before this came into my life, and so I wasn't ready for it. And I've just been so distracted and distraught. So that's what we're talking about today.
I think I think it was Don. I've heard Donald Miller say it, just that. Speaking of Freud versus Frankl, in the absence of meaning, people then will go to pleasure, right? When you don't have meaning, then what you search for is pleasure, right. Or if you, said another way, you search for any sort of outlet or any sort of stimulus that would keep you occupied. So for example, in this year of COVID, where people are now staying at home and you don't have the normal distractions of going to work, driving home from work, and the normal routines of things, you're left with a lot of space in your head, in your calendar, where if you don't fill it with meaning, then you've got all kinds of other things to try to pull in to distract yourself from this discomfort of not knowing what you're here for.
Right. Yeah. Or if you have somebody who has their story figured out, they can very easily drag you into their values and goals. And
Right.
how many times have we, I mean, even in my own life, I've had relationships and I'm so blessed to have a wife that I love and is totally on my team, and I'm totally on her team, and things are great. But you just hear these horror stories of whether it's relationships or business or whatever, where you get 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road and realize I'm not where I want to be. And I think a lot of that has to do with I was living somebody else's values and goals and dreams and aspirations, because I never took the time to sit down and figure them out for myself.
I think this is a tricky one a little bit because your audience, people in business, have thought about where they want to go. They probably write goals. They probably have direction. Like there's a lot of things from the outside looking in that would say like, I have a path, but I know this journey because I have had goals and have had a path, and it's if underneath the surface of that, I think I started to question like, are those really my goals? Like, are those really things I want for me? Who am I? And what am I really here for? And this is where it moved from just goal setting and personal development to really like meaning, like who am I and what am I doing here?
Right. And that's what I love so much about this this course that that StoryBrand has come out with. And like I said, the course is called Hero on a Mission. It's going to be something that will be revealed in the Business Made Simple University courses here, I think beginning of 2021. But really, what's so great about taking the time to focus on your personal goals is I think you're right. Let me say this. I think you're right. Many businesses focus on their business goals, or business, managers or owners or, whatever. They focus on business goals. But I think very few of us really take the time to figure out what is my personal goals. I'm the hero of my own story, right? We talk about hero a lot. And in marketing, I always talk about the fact that you're not the hero, your customer is the hero. However, in your own personal story, you are the hero, right? And your supporting cast, are the ones that are with you on the journey. And so how more important is it really to make sure that your personal story is figured out so it aligns with your business goals, right? And you're the right person showing up every day for your team, for your customers, because you have your personal values figured out.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think that that's the tricky part. I'm sure you're going to get into this, but if you can see it for a minute, you're like, yeah, that's a good question. Like, what is my personal mission? What is my personal goal, meaning, etc.
Right.
The minute you see it, it's a slippery slope trying to answer that question. It's why so many people, I think, get stuck with the question like, what's my why? I don't know what my why is. I've heard it's really important to know what your why is, but I have a hard time answering that question. It's so elusive. I don't know how to grab that.
Right.
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 How do we start to find, maybe we can pivot that way. How do we start to find the meaning?
I think that, this could be a 3-hour long conversation, but for the sake of this, 10 to 20 minutes, we're just going to hit a few points. So I think that when you know your story, you will get focused in a few main areas. And those main areas, there's many areas, but those main areas is know the project that you're working on. Now, the word project, quote unquote, could mean a lot of different things.
Right.
The project could be your business. The project could be your family's, life, or your family's goal, your goal as a family. Like for my family, one of the projects is I want my family to be willing to, to like open our home and be giving and focused on the fact that we want to give to others. And so when my life is done, I want my family to say, as a family, we all were always focused on being willing to, give time and effort and resources to others. So, your personal projects, maybe it's even a skill or something that you're trying to attain. Maybe it's, making sure that certain relationships, certain key relationships are paid attention to and given focus throughout your life. So the term project is kind of a wide berth, but really when you know what projects you're working on, you're looking at the project and going, this demands me, this demands who I am to be part of this, to make it work. So it gives you value. I think another thing too is it cements your values. And once you start cementing your values of who you are and who you will not be, then all of those, and you're reminding yourself of these things on a daily basis. This is why that life plan, which we'll get into a little bit more, is so important, is reminding yourself on a daily basis that these are the projects or the goals that I'm focused on. And I have to have these type of values to become that person, or to be that person consistently. And so then you start to know what your life will defend, right? I think something that if you haven't taken the time to figure out what these projects demand of you, or what your values are cemented in, then when things crop up and you're like, I feel like that's wrong, but and there's a lot of things even happening today. You hear things in the media all the time. You're like, do I take my time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears and get myself involved in that? Do I really care enough? And I think when you have a society that starts to kind of say it's other people's problems, then too many things start falling through the cracks, and before you know it, you look around and go, wow, this isn't the life I want to live, or the society I want to be in. So that's obviously a very deeper conversation, but knowing what you'll fight for, I think too, is starts to get cemented in when kind of these projects that you want to accomplish by the end of your life, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of step one, I think. And I think kind of a outcome of that is when you create a bigger picture, it helps you create context for your life. And I think that also helps you deal with pain. When you have a bigger picture in mind and realize I am on this planet for a purpose to accomplish these things, you can get through the pain in life that comes up. Because one of the things that pain, one of the problems is it makes you feel like I should just give up, or I should just relent, to this pain or this issue that I'm dealing with. Or maybe it's a loss of a loved one, or maybe it's a loss in business or whatever, but when you have a higher goal or a bigger goal in mind, you realize I can get through this, this too shall pass, because I've got bigger things in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. That, the word context always stands out to me, because I think that's so important to the picture, to the existence of whatever it is you're doing. So if I show up to work and the context is I want to make money,
Yeah.
right? Versus I show up to work and the context is how do I make the world better? One is about what I get, the other is about what I can give.
Right.
I mean, the context changes my experience of my work. My work day may look the same from the outside looking in, but the experience of it is different because the context is different.
Right. Right. And that's a great example with, with work, when you have a setback at work, or, I mean, honestly, even in family too, you're like, is this setback or this pain so big that I should just give up?
Right.
And I don't think anything in life is that big that you should give up. But I think that people, when we feel like have the feelings of giving up, it's because we haven't given ourselves, we're not keeping our eye on the bigger importance, of what you're bringing to this story.
I suppose that's an interesting inquiry for you listening to this too, which is just the whole, like, if you could start to inventory the things in life that already bring you meaning, could you amplify that into a bigger goal or a bigger context? Could you think bigger about those things? So if you feel good when you have people over, could you create a bigger context or a bigger story that includes that type of activity? I don't know what that would be, right? But how do you, I think sometimes we just are living in really small stories.
Yeah.
And so we get bored. There's a little bit of meaning. There's like little sparks of meaning in the story, but it's not big enough to keep pulling us forward into a newer expression uh, uh, of of ourselves.
Yeah. And I think you're so right in the context of the story that we're living. I think most of us just live the story of like what's happening in a month from now,
Yeah.
or what's
Yeah.
happening a week from now, what happens, by the end of this year, rather than thinking what is my role in the story of my life, And really another thing too is who's with me.
Right.
I think when you take the time to focus on, what story am I living?
Mm.
And you do have important people in your life, like, your spouse or your kids, you can share that with them and go, this is the story that I see my life living.
Yeah.
Are we on the same page?
Yeah. Right.
I think that, one thing, unfortunately, you see a lot of times in marriages is 20, 30, 40 years later, you hear of like people, getting a divorce, 40 years of marriage.
Yeah.
I bet if you talk to those people, they would say we were living two different stories for our entire life,
Yeah.
which is sad.
I think that's totally makes sense though. Like you get into the rut of things and you just start doing what you do. And, you know, my kids are a freshman and a sophomore in high school now. And my wife and I are already starting to have these conversations about like, what is this? What does our relationship look like when they're gone? Like, who do we get to be? What do we want to do? We don't have that answer yet, by the way,
Yeah.
but we are starting to ask that question. And I think if you don't ask the question, then you just kind of, the kids go, and then you're like, oh, huh, who are you?
Right.
Who are you? For 20
Right.
years, I don't even know what thoughts are inspiring to you anymore.
Right. And that, I mean, that's the one of the things you hear about related to depression is when a mom or a dad, that the empty nest thing kind of sets in, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, well, those kids have been my life
Right.
for the last,
Right.
20 years,
Yeah.
depending on how many kids you have and how far apart they're spaced. Maybe it's 30 years of your life you've been a
Yeah.
mom or a dad, and now all of a sudden, now what? What
Yeah.
if? So I mean, that's why I think it's so important to take the time and go, whose story am I living?
Right.
Being a great parent and wanting your kids to succeed is great.
Mhm.
That's great, but you also need to be living your own story, and they're a part of your story, and you're a part of their story. I think another thing too that is really key in figuring this out is when you start to establish these values, you start to know kind of what quote unquote project you're working on, or working toward. You find like-minded people
Mhm.
who love you unconditionally.
Mhm. Mhm.
And those things it's kind of funny when in our lives, like my wife and I, a few years ago, we were just really desperate to find some really solid friends.
Mm.
And it took us, so we've lived in Spokane since 2009. I would say that we hadn't had a really solid friendship core until only about a few years ago.
Mm.
And we just kept telling ourselves about 5 years ago, we're going to make efforts to find close friends. And so we just started hanging out and started kind of seeking out friendships. And now a couple weekends ago, we went on a weekend trip with there's 4 families. All our kids are this similar age.
Mm.
We rented a place up in the mountains in northern Idaho and had a fantastic time. And it was like, this is what we wanted, right?
Mm.
And it
Nice.
came from telling the story to ourselves of, we want to live a life where we have friends who are depositing into us, and we're
Mm.
depositing into them. We're
Yeah.
investing into
Yeah.
them. They're investing into us.
Mhm.
And in having that mindset, some people would say, the universe attracted us to this person or that person. I believe that God connected us to them. But you find like-minded people when you start shifting your mindset about what is your values, what's your goal, what's your story, what's the project you're working on.
Yeah. I love that. I think it was Don's book, Thousand Miles in a Million Years, something like that,
Yeah.
where he talks about like living better stories. Like we need to live better stories. On the heels of this conversation, just even if we're in a story, even if we feel like we have a story that has meaning, I'm always challenged by that thought. Like, how do I keep leveling up this story so I live a better story? Like I
Yeah.
live a good story, but how cool to go rent a cabin with people, 4 families, and like that's a better story.
Yeah.
You know, you get one life to like do what you want here and live an amazing story. So
Yeah.
what would be a better story for you? Like,
Right.
yeah, like that's an interesting question. What would be a better story for you?
Yeah. And whose story are you living? Because like I said, if you don't know your story, I promise you, you're living somebody else's story.
Yeah.
And you're going to stand back in a few years, maybe it's a couple years, maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 30 years, and stand back and go, huh, that person's gone now.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I'm supposed to do,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And people in our lives are very important. But I also think that it's very critical that we personally, one, look when you're looking at the man in the mirror, like Michael Jackson said, you can look at that person and go, I got you, you know,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
got, I got my back, right? And so, so the human side of marketing is obviously the title of this podcast, and how does this whole story thing relate to how we do better marketing, right? And I think that it really is an exercise in understanding that when you are a better person, you can deliver better
Mm.
at work. You can deliver better products. You can deliver better in the business community. You have more clarity on what you want your business to be, and thus that trickles down into who you are and the customers that you're attracting, the customers that you're
Yeah.
serving.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our businesses are an extension of who we are.
Yeah, and more people want that. They want to know that you're not just punching a clock. This is an extension of who you are.
Yeah,
And I mean,
absolutely.
that's just kind of one of those things that people can just tell.
Yeah.
And they can
Oh,
tell.
yeah.
I can tell you're passionate about, fill in the blank.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, because it's a big part of my story.
Hmm. Exactly. I know the whole process of starting to uncover the story or put the pieces together of that puzzle can be, because I've tried this on my own. It's very hard to do on your own. Like when you could have journals full and still not have uh, a sense of clarity about it because it just swirls. Like it swirls in your mind. But sometimes having frameworks or processes to go through that are super helpful. Do you have a process like that?
Yeah, I do. So actually, a couple weeks ago, I became what's called a Business Made Simple certified coach. So StoryBrand is shifting focus from just being about kind of marketing messaging to
Yeah.
kind of about messaging as a whole. One of those pieces in the Business Made Simple University course is a life plan, and another piece is productivity, and of course communication through the marketing pieces. So as a Business Made Simple University coach, Well Dressed Walrus and me in particular are going to be launching some new deliverables in 2021. One of those things is discussing this life plan and this hero on a mission conversation. So you can learn more about that by going to herostory.coach. So Hero Story is a new wing of Well Dressed Walrus. We're going to be revealing more about that in 2021. And basically what that means is I'm going to start doing individual and group coaching related to all aspects of story. The reason why I chose the name Hero Story is every story has a hero, and you need to know what role you play. In your life, you're the hero. In your leading your team's the hero. Selling to your customers and marketing to your customer is the hero. And if you don't know what role you play or where you are the hero, then you're going to be confused and having a message and a story that's confusing. So some of those things that are included in that hero story deliverable is a life plan, so we can go through, like you said, taking all those journals and thoughts about what is my life supposed to be, how should I map this out. We've got actually a process that helps people figure out their life plan. And once you figure out your life plan, you're able to be more productive, because one of the things that we look at is you start with the end in mind. And then every single day, there's little tiny things that you can do consistently to become that person, right? That person that you're going to be, when you're 80 and you look back and gone, I've lived a fulfilled life. It's because you were a certain type of person on a daily basis. So how do you start becoming that person tomorrow?
Nice.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this life plan and the hero on a mission course is going to allow us to determine what those little small things are to become that, to have that bigger picture. Of course, communication, some of the aspects that I'll be able to coach on more deeply is some additional things related to communications for your staff. So mission statements. One of the things about mission statements is most businesses tell a really boring mission statement. It's a really boring story.
Yeah.
And your staff is not on board because they really don't understand what key characteristics or critical actions are necessary to be a part of that mission, right?
Right.
It's usually a bunch of big words and platitudes, and it's put up on the wall and people walk past it every day and they have no idea what it even means. So, and then of course the marketing piece, all the framework that we've talked about with your customer or the character who has a problem and needs a guide, all of those things are included as well. So again, herostory.coach is where you can go to learn more information about that. And starting in 2021, we'll be offering some coaching related to all of those elements.
Amazing. I love it, man. You're bringing the human side of all of this to the forefront, which I love. Just the human side of business, the human side of marketing. So good. So good. So go to herostory.coach, not .com.
Yep. Herostory.coach.
Got it.
Herostory.com, unfortunately, is $15,000.
Premium domain.
Woo.
Come on, Kurt.
Yeah. So there you go. That's one of my stories that I was able to purchase herostory.com. But
I like, yeah. Nice. So good. Awesome, Kurt. Well, thanks for a great episode. We'll catch you in the next one. Until then, everybody check out herostory.coach.
Thanks, Chris.